Hello and welcome to another Friday where it's Ask Us Anything live with Intrepid English. So, your friend says to you, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And you're wondering, what? We weren't talking about dogs. What is he talking about? Well, you've just heard an animal idiom, and there are many, many animal idioms. So that's what I'm going to be covering today in our Ask Us Anything Friday Live with Intrepid English. I'm going to be covering the top 25 animal idioms so that you are no longer confused when friends use them in the future, and you'll have a new fun way of expressing yourself in English. So what are English idioms? Well, English idioms are a type of figurative language. So what is a figurative expression? It is one whose meaning has no relation to the words in the phrase, and they use creative descriptions to share an idea or feeling. So idioms aren't always easy to learn and understand. It's a fact. And the only way to learn them is to hear them and have the meaning explained to you, because otherwise they just won't make sense to you. So why use idioms if it just makes life harder? Because it's a fun way to talk, and it's a great way to express yourself in a whole new way. And each language and culture has their own set of idioms. So, for example, idioms common in the United Kingdom may be foreign to an English speaker from the United States, and vice versa, or the same with Australia. So I hope that reassures you that idioms are fun and you are not expected to be a dictionary of idioms, because even native speakers don't know them all. Okay? And the best way to sound natural is to use idioms sparingly. And naturally, so not very often. If one comes to mind, use it, but you don't need to go out of your way to use idioms. Otherwise, it will sound a bit strange. So take your time and they'll come to you naturally as you learn them. And the more if there's one that you particularly like, and the more you use it naturally, the more it just will work and flow with you and how you express yourself in English. So let's look at my top 25 animal idioms. Number 1, at a snail's pace. This means to move very slowly. So you can understand why this means to move very slowly, because snails and slugs move very slowly. So if you move at a snail's pace, you are moving very slowly. And this idiom has been used for a very long time. It was first seen in William Shakespeare's play Richard III, which was written and first performed in the 16th century. In England, of course. So if, for example, you could say, I'm so sorry I'm late. The traffic was moving at a snail's pace. Okay, number 2, to be as busy as a bee. Now, sorry, that's my cat there. I hope that you will understand that to be as busy as a bee is to be extremely busy, because as we know, bees never stop unless they're sleeping. So it originated with Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, specifically The Squire's Tale, which was written around 1386. So the English is very old, but the phrase remains popular today. So just take a moment. It was written in 1386, but it's a phrase we still use today. Now, the language was very different in 1386 England. The actual phrase is this, which you won't understand, I barely understand. So lo such slights and subtleties in women be, for I as busy as bees. Okay, so it's old English, okay? But in modern English, the animal idiom is exactly the same, as busy as bees. So it's used to describe someone being very busy but working with a purpose and in a pleasant manner. So, for example, his son is working on his science project. He's been busy as a bee all day. Okay? Very happy getting his work done. Number 3. To open a can of worms. So this means to create a whole new set of problems. So this phrase is often used when you're trying to solve a problem or answer a question, but you actually only create more problems and more questions. Nobody is exactly sure on the exact origin of this idiom, but a lot of people believe that can of worms is a modern version of the idiom Pandora's box, which comes from the old Greek myth, and it also means to create a new set of problems when you're trying to solve something. So, for example, oh, you've opened a real can of worms here when you see that instead of fixing the problem, for example, if you have a plumbing situation, you have a leak, and then you don't call a plumber and you try and fix it yourself. This has happened to me. You try and fix it yourself, and suddenly you create a bigger leak and water is everywhere and it's a huge mess. Well, you've opened a can of worms there. Number 4, a wild goose chase. So this is when you chase something that's very difficult, pretty much impossible to catch. So imagine chasing a wild goose and trying to catch it. Geese are fast, strong, and not very easy to catch. In fact, extremely hard to catch, and it would also look very silly. So when we use the idiom going on a wild goose chase, it's to describe something that is hard to catch, but it's also to describe something that the pursuer is going all over the place and not taking them to the place they need to go. So, for example, I can say, if it's clear that somebody doesn't know where they're going and they're trying to direct me and we're trying to find the museum, for example, in the Louvre, I now know where the Mona Lisa is, but I remember at the beginning taking my grandmother and literally leading her on a wild goose chase because I kept taking her everywhere and I had no real idea where it was and we kept going in the wrong direction. So I was leading her on a wild goose chase. And only when we stopped to ask, I actually asked many staff at the Louvre where was the Mona Lisa, and we eventually found it, but it was a wild goose chase and pretty horrible to find. But yes, so if you go on a wild goose chase, you are trying desperately to find something or a place, and you're just going everywhere, and it's just leading you all over the place. Number 5, we're on now. The world is your oyster. So that means you have many opportunities in front of you. So it's a very good outlook on life to have. Now, if we think of an oyster, they're very difficult to open. And finding opportunities in the world is like opening an oyster because it's not exactly easy. Sometimes when you open an oyster, you find a pearl. And so when you say that the world is your oyster, you have a really great outlook on the opportunities in front of you. And if you have an oyster in your hands, you could have a beautiful treasure that belongs to you. You just don't know, and it's in your future. And you could open that oyster and suddenly you have a pearl. So imagine, it's pretty much said in every graduation speech. When people finish university, they always say, you have just graduated from your university, so now the world is your oyster. The world is in your hands, and you can find the opportunities to make your life amazing. And you have a real gift in your hands. Number 6, to watch someone like a hawk. So that is to watch them very closely. So imagine, a hawk are those birds that fly around. The birds of prey, they have exceptional eyesight, and when they spot a prey, a mouse or something on the ground, they dive for it. They have exceptional eyesight and they watch things very, very closely. So children often hear this idiom from a parent or their teacher saying, "I'm watching you like a hawk." It's often used to make sure that the children don't misbehave or make a mistake. So it's not just with children, it can also be in the world of work. You know, the boss watches them like a hawk. He makes sure they don't make mistakes. The next one is something that one that American friend told me. It wasn't one that I had heard very often, but I like it a lot. So it's to be as mad as a hornet. So I have a very bad experience with hornets. They are horrible things. I mean, I don't like wasps, but I really, really find hornets so scary. I've been chased by hornets quite a few times and never been chased by a wasp to the same extent. They're far more vicious. And so if you can imagine, by mad, I don't mean, crazy. I mean mad as in angry. So as mad as a hornet means that you're furious, you're extremely angry. Because when a hornet gets angry, it can do a lot of damage. When it stings you, it's painful and it can actually be quite dangerous. So if someone says to you, be careful, that person is as mad as a hornet, that means watch out because that person is extremely angry and you don't want to be around that person. So for example, my mother was as mad as a hornet when we broke the mirror. You know, we quickly left the room because she was she was so furious. Okay, number 8, dog eat dog. So we often say it's a dog eat dog world, which means it's a very competitive world. So if you imagine the world is extremely competitive. The competition is very intense and people will do anything to get ahead, even sometimes hurting people. And that's when we would use this expression, it's a dog eat dog world. Hopefully, dogs actually don't eat other dogs, but when they fight, it is extremely violent. So that's the kind of idea behind it. So it can be in a situation, in school, in a company, in your workplace. It can be, if, for example, I'm thinking of stockbrokers in the financial world, in the banking world, it is very dog eat dog. And they are only looking out for themselves to make their jobs a success, and they don't care if they hurt somebody else in the process. Number 9, to have eagle eyes. So it's very similar to watch like a hawk, because eagles, just like hawks, have excellent vision, and they won't miss details. They watch everything extremely closely. So to have an eagle eye, but it's different to watching like a hawk, because watching someone like a hawk is expecting them to do something wrong. Whereas to have eagle eyes, it just means that you don't miss anything and you are very focused on details. So for example, the teacher goes over the exams with an eagle eye. She's looking at every single detail. Number 10 now. I probably should have actually kept it to only 10 animal idioms, because now 25 seems like I'm giving you a lot, but they are excellent idioms. Number 10 is to get your ducks in a row. So that is to organize something. So if you imagine, get the image in your mind of a mother duck, and when she's walking, she's got her baby ducks, her ducklings. They always tend to walk in a line, in a straight line, in a row. It's quite crazy how that works. So if you're telling somebody to get their ducks in a row, you mean that they need to stand up, get themselves organized, and finish their project or task on time. So it's to, sit up straight, get working, get organized, and get the job done. So for example, your boss might say to you, I'll be reviewing things to make sure you've got your ducks in a row, because it's a big event and we want it to go smoothly. So they're going to check that everything is organized and that you have your ducks in a row. The next one, number 11, to be a guinea pig. So as you know, many products out in the world are unfortunately, which is something that I still can't believe that this still happens in so many brands and industries. So unfortunately, animals are tested on, and more often than not, guinea pigs. These are these incredible animals, very lovely, absolutely amazing pets, and yet we test the different products, medicine, beauty products. We test all kinds of things on them. So if you are a guinea pig, it means that you're a test subject. So because obviously it doesn't have to be just animals. It can also be, you can be a guinea pig. So for example, at Intrepid English, if we wanted to start a new course, we would maybe ask some students to be our guinea pigs to test the course out. And so it's often volunteers. The animals aren't volunteers, the actual animals aren't volunteers, but when we say that a person is a guinea pig, they normally tend to be a volunteer and willing to test out the new project, study, course, and so forth, or even product, actually, yeah. Number 12, to hold your horses. Okay, so to hold your horses, that means to slow down. So again, think back to those Western films where you see the cowboys reining in the horses. They're asking that the horse slows down. You know, they're trying to pull that horse, hold your horses, pull them back. They're saying, wait a minute, stop. There's no rush, hold your horses. Number 13, I'll be a monkey's uncle, which means I'll be very surprised. Now, you could also say, you could have knocked me over with a feather. Same idea. It's that kind of quite silly way of expressing how surprised you are by something. Again, you can't be an uncle to a monkey, and somebody cannot knock you over with a feather because, let's be honest, a feather is nothing. So it's when you are really completely surprised by something. Well, you could have knocked me over with a feather. I'll be a monkey's uncle. I never thought I'd pass that test. Number 14, let sleeping dogs lie. So that means to let something be, leave it in peace, leave it alone. So dogs often feature in English idioms, definitely UK English idioms, because we love dogs. We love them completely and utterly. And so when someone says, let the sleeping dogs lie, they're telling you just to let things be. You can't change the situation, so just leave it alone. Leave it in peace, like a sleeping dog. So I'm not telling, for example, I'm not telling the boss about Mark's problem. It's his business. It's best to let sleeping dogs lie. Number 15, pet peeve. This is a very common one, a very great idiom to use. And it means when you've got it's a very common annoyance. It's something that specifically annoys you, but it's often annoys a lot of people. And it's not something that really irritates you a lot. It's just something that's irritating. So it's not a huge problem, but it's just a common habit that most people do. And it irritates you day to day. So it varies from people to people. So for example, a pet peeve of mine is here in Paris, people on the metro, people on the platform don't let people off the train first. They go straight onto the train. Now, or it's the same in lifts and elevators. I don't understand. You need to let people off before you can get on. That it's just logical. It's how we do it in London. And it's a real pet peeve of mine. And I can complain about it till the cows come home. That's another animal idiom, until the end of day and the end of time. But it won't change. Okay. The next one, I think I'm on 16 now. Pick of the litter. To be the pick of the litter is to be the best choice, to be the favorite option. So if you're the pick of the litter, you are the favorite. So for example, all the boys want to take her on a date. I've just been watching a lot about the royal family lately, and as I think most people have, and certainly most people in Britain. And I was thinking to myself today, Kate Middleton is truly absolutely gorgeous. And I bet she was the pick of the litter when she was growing up. So all the boys wanted to take her out on a date. The next one, 17, puppy love. So puppy love is those feeling of love and affection that you have that's usually temporary and fairly innocent, and it's normally when you're a child or an adolescent. So we can also call it calf love. So calf is a baby cow. So just like puppy is a baby dog, it's often how children feel towards something, some person or some animal that they have. So for example, I had a crush on one of our family friends' son, who I think he was 8 years older than me, so I thought he was very cool. And that was my first puppy love. Okay, so it's not real love, it's just the kind of love that you admire when you're young. Number 18, like shooting fish in a barrel, which basically means something is very easy to do, or it's a very easy trick to do. So it's an easy task. So this idiom goes back to the 1900s. And if you think you've got a barrel of fish, then you have to kill those fish and you shoot them. Well, it's not exactly difficult. It's pretty easy because they can't move. They can't go swimming or anything like that. So for example, he's an expert in auto repair. So fixing this car is like shooting fish in a barrel. For him, it's super easy. For me, it'd be extremely difficult, but for him, it's extremely easy. 19, a little birdie told me. So when you hear something that it's not common knowledge, not everybody knows about it, and it's a bit of a secret, then instead of saying the person's name, you often say, a little birdie told me. So for example, when you know that your friend is pregnant, for example, but it hasn't been announced, and then you find out another friend knows, and so you go, oh, a little birdie told me, you know also about the secret. Or if you find out that a friend's daughter or son gets accepted into their university, now you know probably that it's the parents of that child that has told that person. But still, I remember, my mum would say to my friends, oh, a little birdie told me, and it was pretty obvious I told her, but a little birdie told me you got into Oxford, for example. Number 20, to be a bull in a china shop. So taking a bull, okay, a male cow, not exactly known to be delicate, in fact, to be very violent and aggressive and big. And if you're in a china shop, china breaks very easily. So if you're a bull in a china shop, you're somebody who causes a lot of accidents and is very, very clumsy. So sometimes my husband can be a bit of a bull in a china shop, which means that sometimes he just comes and he just breaks things. He's extremely clumsy. So he doesn't mean it, it's by accident, but things get broken around him. The next one, 21, to have butterflies in your stomach. So to have butterflies in your stomach means that you're nervous. It can be nervous in a bad way. Like you're anxious about something. It can also be you're extremely excited about something. So it can be both positive and negative. And it's when you get that fluttery feeling in your stomach, like, oh, and it can either be extremely exciting or it can be extremely nervous. So if you're public speaking, you could say I was extremely nervous or excited before my speech. I had butterflies in my stomach. Number 22, to be all bark and no bite. So another dog idiom. So sometimes dogs, you'll notice that they bark a lot, especially small dogs, they bark a lot. But actually they're harmless. They won't actually bite somebody. So if your boss you could say he's all bark but no bite, then that means that your boss yells and shouts at you a lot, blah, 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 but doesn't actually do anything about it, doesn't give you any reprimands, doesn't give you any penalties. It's all threats, but no actual action behind it. Okay, number 23. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? So this question is a massive debate, and there is no right answer. So if there's something where you don't know the answer to something, and it's a huge debate, and you're debating with your friends, and there's no real true answer, then you can say, well, it's just like the debate, which came first, the chicken or the egg? There is no right answer. Ancient philosophers have been talking about it for ages, and they still don't know. Number 24, to be a wolf in sheep's clothing. So that is when something or someone is extremely dangerous, but presents themselves as someone gentle, weak, or innocent. So just imagine a sheep putting on, just imagine a wolf putting on a sheep costume and then pretending to be a sheep and then going among the flock of sheep. Well, there wouldn't be many sheep left at the end of it. The wolf would eat all the sheep, and it'd be quite terrifying. So that is believed to come from the Bible. And it's when you are warning somebody, oh, be careful, he's a wolf in sheep's clothing. So that is when for example, you're warning your girlfriends about a man that is quite a predator among women, and women often get hurt around him. Maybe he's someone you know, but you would never let any of your girlfriends date him because he's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Okay, don't trust him. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing. The final one, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. So when someone says you can't teach an old dog new tricks, it means that you can't change someone's established routine. They are set in their ways and they're not going to learn new tasks. So for example, in my last job, I was the manager, the director of an English language school here in Paris, and I had some teachers who were a lot older than me, and it was difficult sometimes to get them to adapt to the new method or courses we were teaching. And I would say that to my husband, I'd say it's difficult because you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I couldn't change how they were. I had to find a different way to communicate with them. So I hope that's useful, and I hope that you've learned some new idioms today. Please, I would love you to comment below if you can think of any examples of your own when you're using any of these idioms. I would love to see some examples and some comments below. And also don't hesitate to comment either below in this video, or if you are on our Intrepid English page, please comment with any questions you want me to answer in a future Ask Us Anything Friday live. In the meantime, have a fantastic weekend. I'm sorry this has been quite a long live, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. Bye now.